Josh. Good morning, good evening.
Thanks for joining us again today. We are going to be covering connecting business objects in a few more ways to our BW system that we've been creating over the last podcast series. So maybe Ethan, do you want to just give us a recap, I guess, of the last few episodes and what we've done and what we did in between the last one and this one?
Yeah, sure. So we started off by doing a little bit of work connecting data services to BW to allow us to import a sales database, sample database that is based on SQL Server, and went through a couple of the options we have with integration of data services in BW. And then last time we spent some time setting up a bit of a BW data mart based on several info objects in a DSO, a data store object. And then on top of that, a multi-provider, which is kind of like a query, like a query view in a database. And then we created a query, a BEX query, which is the sort of BW semantic layer. It's sort of like a universe or something for BW. The combination of a query and a multi-provider pulls together data and then puts a semantic sort of layer on top of it. So that's what we've got in BW right now. Since the last episode, I went back and added a little bit more kind of fun doodads so that we can have a little bit more data to work with today. So I turned on some navigational attributes and created a little bit of a hierarchy, a geographic hierarchy based on city, region, and country. So when we do our connection to business objects, we can play with that a little bit. And then next time, we'll go back into BW and do some more work on making things a little bit more organized and making things look better on the reporting side. And we'll go through how to do things like create that hierarchy or turn on those navigational attributes.
Awesome. So what we're going to do today is effectively just go through setting up that connection to BW again in business objects. There was a few gotchas that we've worked through that we'll share with you, and we want to then use the BEX query in Web Intelligence, in Crystal Reports, in Dashboard Designer or Excelsis. And then finally we want to finish on creating a multi-source universe on top of the multi-provider, I guess, because it actually brings in all the base tables. And that's your avenue if you want to combine the BW data with non-SAP data in the universe, or if you want to use Explorer or Visual Intelligence at this stage, you have to use the multi-source universe to do that. So we're going to go through each of those steps for you. So we'll jump straight into it. So let me just share my screen.
So now things are reversed. So you'll see me today. And you'll see Josh's screen.
Can you see that okay?
So I'll do a lot of nodding. Yep, it all looks good.
Cool. So yeah, the first thing we were going to do is, we talked a little bit the other week about how we could, we didn't have to enable that external access. So it turns out that it works for analysis OLAP, but when you do use the other business objects tools, you still need to enable it for external access. So we're just going to go in and open up our BEX query that we created. And if we are wrong on this, then I'm sure someone will correct us. So, but this is
it's empirically verified.
Yeah, that's right. So this is my BEX, or the BEX query that Ethan created. If we go to the extended tab here, we have this allow external access to this query by OLDB for OLAP. We have to turn that on for the BEX query to be visible in Web Intelligence or Crystal Reports for Enterprise. So turn that on and we just save that. So that's all we need to do here. And now we're just going to go and set up that connection again. So this is the central management console, which is the administrator console for business objects. And we can create an OLAP connection within here directly to that BEX query. So we're just going to come into our system here and create a new connection. Put it in that folder. So that was sales. We'll give it a name, sales order demo detail. I think we had it before. And for our connection details, the system is localhost. The server is NSP system number 00, client 001. And we just connect to the system as a once off for it to retrieve the metadata. And what it will do is come back and ask us to choose, one of the either a multi-provider or a BEX query. Cool. Did I put something in wrong, or did I type my password wrong? Hey.
Oh, it worked 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Localhost NSP.
Oh, how about that? There we go, just a noob error. So now connected to our system, here's our multi-provider, Sales Demo Multi, and then underneath that is the BEX query that we created, Sales Demo Order Detail. So if we can choose this level, which will then give us the option to choose multiple, one of many BEX queries while we're in our tools, or we can choose the direct BEX query, which we'll do in this case. And then in terms of the authentication, we're just going to hard code our user in this case, so that it just always uses that user to connect to the BEX query. So there it is there. Okay. And just to show, quickly touch on what we demoed last time, is that direct connectivity to the BEX query via analysis edition for OLAP. So there's that query or connection to the BEX query that we defined, and if we choose that, it will allow us to use analysis OLAP very simply. Yeah.
And so now you can see actually in here that we've got a few more options over on the left side. So
oops, sorry, I closed it already.
That's fine. Those are due to the navigational attributes that have been added in. So it just creates some more drill down options.
Yeah. So these down here.
Yep. And as with most of the stuff, they're very ugly. And then next week we'll get into how you prettify that a little bit, or add a little bit of semantic metadata to them.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's open up one of the BusinessObjects tools and see what it looks like connecting. And maybe, Ethan, you can give us a little bit of background on some of the way that it displays and which parts we should be using, because I know that's something that I still don't get 100%. So I'm logging onto my BusinessObjects system here, and I chose the BEX option in terms of my connections. And here, it only shows me the one BEX query we've got configured. And here is now our BEX query that we can connect to with the technical name. And we choose that, and now we get our query design panel, which effectively allows us to choose the components of the BEX query that we want to include in our report. So as an example, we can see here we've got a lot of measures and for those in BusinessObjects dimensions. If we look at something like customer though, Ethan, did you want to talk to that view?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm not sure technically if I can talk without having my picture come up.
Okay.
But if you can lock it on your screen by clicking at the bottom, then
I don't think I can, but that's okay.
Well, yeah. So what we have here, to bring it back to what we were talking about in BW before, is that each of these dimensions is an info object, and some of them are embedded in the data store object. So customer, in this case, I've added to the data store object itself. And some of them are navigational attributes. So the ones that are all in caps and have the double underscores in them are set up as navigational attributes. So those are actually, they all act as dimensions, but the navigational attributes are really modeled as attributes, and BW just exposes them and has them act like dimensions. And then in the drill down that you've got here, we've got all the attributes of customer. So if you drill down on one of the navigational attributes, like Z customer city, you'll see the attributes of city, which are the attributes of the attribute of customer. So what we can also see here is that there's now a hierarchy on city, that being geography, and we should be able to use that for display in in Webby or in any of the other tools. And this is one of the nice features of the new BEX connectivity that we get in BusinessObjects 4.0, where we can actually more easily use these hierarchies. And we could, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, I believe we could do that before with the MDX connectivity, but this new connectivity should be faster and expose a little bit more of the semantic metadata from BW.
Yeah, I think hierarchy navigation and stuff like that was memory escapes me, but it was either very rudimentary or it was non-existent in 3.
Yeah, so it should be better now, I think, and we can explore that a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. So I've chosen that. So if you didn't see the screen up till now, here's the customer dimensions that Ethan was talking about, and then the navigational attribute and the geography hierarchy, which I've added to my result objects. So if we choose customer as well, and then we choose some measures, and again, under our measure options, you can see here we've got the currency, the formatted value. So again, that unit of measure capability that we talked about last episode, Ethan, that's also why we get some additional information here in the query panel.
Yep, that's going to be right. And if you pull in the currency, right now it's going to be blank, so it's not going to be very useful to us. So what we're going to be interested in right now is the formatted value.
Yeah, okay. So if I grab I think the top one just still pulls in the formatted value. So yeah, like grabbing that instead of that. So I've just chosen a couple of simple dimensions and measures, and geography is obviously a hierarchy. So we're going to run that query now, which will go and ask for the information back from BW and return that to Web Intelligence. And here's now what that looks like. And look, I'm wrong, so there's no formatted value. So, but you can see here we've got our breakdown of the geography. And what I'll do is we'll get rid of customer for now.
Yeah, and there's a large amount of not assigned because the hierarchy that I put in place just includes a couple of cities in North America and EMEA, so we can't. So everything that's not there goes into unassigned. And next time we'll go into filling out the hierarchy. Yeah,
and you can see here it actually only pulled back like one level of that hierarchy, and you actually need to, when you in the query panel, when you specify here the member selection, and that we want to choose all members. And then once we do that, we then actually it brings back the whole hierarchy. Because I know North America especially had quite a few more regions. Yeah, or 2 cities at least. Yeah. So that's something we need to do, and
we also think. Yeah, our sample database maker can't spell Stuttgart, but that's okay. the Germans will understand.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's our information in Web Intelligence at least, and you can see that hierarchical capability has come through as well into Web Intelligence. What about crystal reports? We'll have a look at that one as well. So I'm just going to choose to build a new report from a data source, and we can connect to BusinessObjects. For that, we're just going to browse the BI platform. And we can choose either universe, BEX query, or relational connection. So if we choose BEX query, there's our query that we'd created. And again, now we'll have the same interface in order that query panel. So again, if we choose customer, what's the product or order? Would that be useful in this case? Maybe? We'll just choose those sample objects and pull them in. And so you can see Crystal Reports is much more of a formatted reporting tool, so it just brings that in as a flat view, but from there we can actually add grouping capability. So if we wanted to group on the product, then we could do that quite simply. Who bought Nokias? It was these customers. So there's our information Crystal Reports as well. Obviously, all the capabilities we have in Crystal, we can apply to the information, and so similar to Webby, so you can still work in those two different environments and use the different functionality that's present in both tools in order to meet your needs. Lastly, for the reporting tools, I wanted to touch on Excelsius as well, or sorry, Dashboard Designer. So we just create a blank model.
Clicking's hard.
Yeah.
Plus, you get free advertisement with the product.
Yeah. I don't want to do those. A blank one. It doesn't want to give me one. Look at that. It's weird. I don't think I've got a spreadsheet. Let me just have a look. Let's see if we got one.
That is strange.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. We don't actually need the data in the spreadsheet anyway, so it's fine. Or it's not going to work at all. All right. I'm sure it's everything to do with using a remote desktop and not to do with Excelsius. So never fear, everyone.
Yeah, all the clicking stuff seems to be related to that.
Yeah. So we don't have to do a connection via here anymore. We can do it through there, but we now can use the query browser in Dashboard Designer to create a query directly against our Bex query. So if I just log on again to the business object system, we choose Bex as our data source. There is our connection that we set up. And again, here is our same objects that we were looking at before. So what we'll do is we'll just take a simple, let's grab,
let's do by employee.
Sorry, employee. I was going to say, okay, employee, which is...
it's one of the navigational, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little slow, but we'll choose net sales. And we'll get a preview back of that information. And Ethan and I were talking about this before the call, actually, that there's an error because of the formatting, but also it takes a little while to return data initially sometimes because it has to do, because we're using a new system, it has to process it once off before it can actually do it faster. So that's why it's a little slow when we're doing some of these new things. Happy with that, so we'll click next and save that. And that's now a query that we can connect to. You can see here, we can insert it in our spreadsheet, but we can also map it directly to components in Dashboard Designer. So if we choose, let's say a bubble or a column chart, and we're just going to map that to a series. So our values will map to some query data, being net sales. And our category labels will map to our crew data as well, being the employee. And the employee numbers are just 1 to 30, so that's the values that we get. But that's now a dashboard that's connected to a BW query. If we were to export that to the BI Launchpad, it would retrieve the results every time we open that dashboard up and show the new results. So, any questions so far, Ethan, from you, or comments?
Looks good to me.
Yeah.
I think employee 5 is winning.
Yeah, doing quite well, aren't they? So that's the BEX queries directly in Web Intelligence, Crystal Reports, and Excelsius. So the last thing that we wanted to touch on was creating a multi-source universe on top of the BEX query. So what I've done is just open up our information design tool where we create our multi-source universes. And the first thing we're going to need to do here is create a specific relational connection to BW, which sounds a little bit weird, but that's what we have to do.
So, Josh, why would we want to do this as opposed to what we were just doing before?
Yep. So with the Web Intelligence, Crystal Reports, Dashboard Designer, they have direct connectivity to BEX queries via Bix. So all we need to do is define the BEX query connection, and it can just connect to it and retrieve the data. There's a few tools in the Business Objects portfolio currently which don't allow you to talk directly to Bix. And the ones I'm thinking of specifically are Explorer and Visual Intelligence. So if you do want to get BW data into those tools, then you need to use a universe as an intermediary layer, which is what we're going to build now. The other time that you'd want to use a multi-source universe on top of BW is when you actually have other data sources sitting outside of BW that you want to combine and mash with the BW data at the universe level, so that when you do use any of the reporting tools on top of the universe, it'll actually already have data combined from BW and other data sources.
Yeah, and I think one other possible reason you'd want to do this is if you're a business objects shop, really, or you've used business objects as your BI platform, and your canonical semantic layer is the business objects semantic layer, it's going to be difficult to recreate that using BEX queries. So even if you're only connecting to BEX queries for a particular report, you may want to map your business objects, I forget what the name is in business objects, but the business layer onto the BW data itself. And so I think sometimes that may be a reason that you'd want to bypass the BW semantic layer and go directly to the relational universe.
Yeah. Though you need to be, I guess, aware of the drawbacks of doing that, right? Because you lose a lot of the capabilities that you normally build into the BEX query level, in navigational attributes and hierarchies and all that kind of stuff. You won't get any hierarchical capability, and there's also, I think, going to be a reasonable performance hit as well, right?
Yeah, depending on what you're doing, that's correct. So for things like aggregations and stuff like that runs, or exception aggregations, if you're doing something complex in the BW OLAP processor, then you're going to take a performance hit by doing that in the universe layer, most likely.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the reasons why we want to do this. So let's have a look at the process of doing that. This is our business object system down here, our server connection, and so what we want to do is create a new relational connection. So we're just going to call that BW, and it's an SAP connection, and here's our SAP NetWeaver BW. Now if you try and create that as a local connection, as we found just before in terms of our testing, you can't do it on the local side. You have to do this on the server side and then create a connection. So our client number is 001, and we'll put in all these details. System ID is NSP. I hope I've got that right. My last attempt wasn't so successful. We'll test the connection now, and that I managed to do it right. So it can connect successfully to BW, and now we need to choose an info provider to associate to this connection. So here's all our lists of tables, info objects. Yeah, and we want our multi-provider down here, RZ order MP. So we'll check that. All looks fine. So we'll click finish, and that now creates a connection here. And it asks us if we want to create a shortcut on our side, on the local side as well, which we will do in the OLAP project. So there's the connection we just created, and sorry, motorbike going past. And here's our shortcut to that connection on our local development side. And what we'll now do is create a data foundation. And for non-OLAP data sources, this is typically all your base tables and views that you join, and you define that part of the universe here. So what actually happens when we put it on top of BW is it brings in all the tables that are part of that multi-provider. It's important that we choose this option here, the multi-source enabled data foundation type, because you can see here it supports additional relational connections being SAS and SAP Network for BW. We have to choose our system, which we're already logged onto, and then it allows us to choose the connections that are available here on our local side, of which there's only one, that's BW connection, and we choose a color to assign to those tables. So what we end up with is this.
That looks really complicated.
Yeah, it does. So how does this, Ethan, I don't know if you can just talk to, I guess, where these map back to and what we created before, and I guess this is a different perspective of the multi-provider than you would see in BW, perhaps?
Yeah, that's basically correct. I mean, I think the middle table there, the yellow table, is the multi-provider essentially that we see when we're in, for example, analysis for OLAP or in any of the other tools. The left-hand pane that had all of our key figures, or all of our dimensions, all of our the business objects name for key figures. That's what we have in the multi-provider, and then all the other tables around it are the attribute tables of the master data or of the dimensions that are part of that multi-provider. So you can see if you go down, like the first one is product, Z product, and then it's got attributes, category, quantity, and unit. And then the kind of interesting one is Z customer city. It's sort of hard to follow the mapping lines there, but Z customer city maps on the right-hand side to the third box, the blue one there, which has Z customer, Z city, Z region, and Z country, and that's actually interestingly, that data is actually pulled from the hierarchy. So I believe what it's done there is it's flattened out the hierarchy that we had on Z city. Z customer is there because because I believe it's concatenated in, because it's a navigation, city is a navigational attribute of customer. So this actually, I think, gives us some access to the data from the hierarchy. And if you look at the if you look at the data in that table, I'll stop talking so you can go through this, Josh, so people can see. But if you look at the data in that table, I think you'll see some of the data that we saw in our previous query.
Yeah. So there's the product table we were talking about, and then here is our customer city, region, country hierarchy there. So mapped to what we would see as a fact table. So if we right-click that table and show table values, then here is all that data. Now the interesting thing, I guess, is that this is 121 rows, but we actually don't have any.
So our attributes don't show up, actually.
Yeah, those attributes don't show up. Yeah, maybe it's this one. No, no, it's employee. So anyway, I guess we're kind of getting sidetracked.
Yeah.
But I guess proof point is that this is now a data foundation that we can build a business layer on top of, which we can then use in Explorer and Visual Intelligence to actually retrieve data from our BW system. And we could also, use Web Intelligence or Crystal Reports on top of this universe as well. So but it is a flattened view of BW. So yeah, that's I guess that's what we wanted to cover today in terms of showing the different connectivity options for business objects. Something we unfortunately didn't get to show is Design Studio, because I haven't actually installed it on this server yet. But that has native connections to BW as well, and that's the new HTML5 mobile dashboarding solution that's just been GA'd. So.
Yeah, so maybe we'll get to that in a later version of this.
Yeah.
Or a later episode.
That's right. So yeah, just I guess recapping, what we did is we just highlighted that we needed to expose the BEX query for external access for you to see it in Web Intelligence or Crystal Reports. We created our connection in the central management console to that BEX query. We then connected to the BEX query in Web Intelligence, Crystal Reports, and Dashboard Designer, and retrieved data and showed how that worked. And then the last step is creating the relational connection on our business object server to BW, and then building our data foundation that uses that connection to expose all the base tables and would allow us to leverage the BW connectivity through Explorer and Visual Intelligence.
Yep. Yeah. So it was, and that was much. I mean, I'm not sure if you got that, Josh, working on it, but I think these business objects tools are much more, in a lot of ways, a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more responsive, I think, than some of the older BEX tools. So it's nice to see that you can expose these queries, and it kind of gives them a little bit of a new lease on life in some ways.
So not only for the business objects customers, but it's a good good overview of the business objects connectivity on top of BW.
Yep.
So yeah. Okay, so stay tuned for our next episode. What are we going to be covering, Ethan?
We'll dive back into BW, and we'll talk about how we got that hierarchy set up, how we got those navigational attributes set up, and some cool stuff we can do as far as lookups and that sort of thing. All code free, no SQL, no ABAP, none of that nasty stuff. So
good.
All right.
All right. Thanks very much for your time, Ethan. Thanks for joining us again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks.
This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV Technologies. Visit us on net at savethecms.com.
DSLayered!